This is the second in our series of videos. This one has much more of a focus on providing specific supports to staff and to teachers who are suddenly thrust into the role of cinematographer, film developer, online editor, content management officer, all the above. And we hope to be able to provide some ideas. But more so, I hope to be able to garner some input from you guys, some feedback, some questions. From those, I can make future videos. I hope they're helpful. I'm always supposed to qualify myself, so in case there's anyone watching this who I haven't met yet, my name again is Lonnie Webb. I'm a licensed clinical social worker with specialties in human behavior, neuroscience, and systems analysis, which is why I'm doing this gig, is supporting teachers and staff around the county, around the state, really, but in this specific opportunity for your school district. I hope this helps, and let's get started. I want to make sure I have the context for this series correct and to make sure we're keeping things in perspective. So I recently heard this great podcast on NPR, and I thought I'd share just a couple minutes of it with you.
Everything happened so quickly. When we closed, we had no idea what we were going to do. I didn't have lesson plans for e-learning because, again, no one knew that we were about to close.
Before you leave, you need to make sure that you are also prepared to be out of school for a month. This is while teaching just full time anyway. So nothing about our regular jobs changed, except that we were also being asked to create a distance learning plan on top of it.
I, as a teacher, am always thinking about how can I lead by example? And if I don't know how to use these programs, then how can I expect my third graders to do so?
I thought we had gone over all the important things, but in my first day, one of my students showed up to a video call, not wearing a shirt. Just, didn't think about that at all.
Some days I post videos of myself giving those instructions, where they're at least seeing my face. One time I gave them from the middle of Target parking lot, just so that they could see what's going on.
I am a nurse. I am a counselor. I'm a cheerleader. I mean, the list goes on. That is also part of my job that I was hoping I'd be able to do virtually.
I became a teacher to build relationships with my students and to essentially be a carer. This is a caring profession. And that one-on-one, face-to-face interaction, I think is what I'm really going to miss.
We will not be returning to school for the rest of the year. And I'm sorry, I get emotional when I say that. It's really hard to say that out loud because I've already had my last day of school with my students, and that is really difficult. And I did not get to properly say goodbye to them. And, so I'm trying not to think about June, and I'm just thinking about this week. And so really that's what my focus is on.
I think just show yourself some grace. Keep your head above water. And when it's not perfect, you really just have to just breathe and relax and know that sometimes surviving is enough.
Of course, things are different now, but you've spent months, if not years, developing rapport relationships with these students that you can capitalize on now. Students today have an uncanny ability to develop relationships and foster relationships online. Some teachers are having fun with it. They're doing things like teaching chemistry out of their kitchen. But this is an opportunity to grow and learn. Let's look at some ways how.
Does not compute. Does not compute. Does not compute.
Converting standard educational classroom materials into online sources does not compute. It's very difficult to translate that amazing, rich, spontaneous Socratic seminar that you have into a discussion board or through Zoom on a meeting. That collaborative moment that you had in your classroom where the students are all working really hard together on a design challenge, that doesn't transfer very well to students who are trying to do this in their own homes with distractions and perhaps brothers and sisters or parents around or not around. It just doesn't translate that way. But there are some things we can do. There's a model that might be helpful here. SAMR is a model that was developed by Dr. Ruben Puentedura at Harvard University, and it looks at if technology as applied in the classroom for learning is enhancing the learning or is it transforming the learning. If it's enhancing, is it substitutionary? Is it augmenting? If it's transforming, is it modifying or is it redefining? Let's take a look at those a little bit closer. Quick note. If this is too broad, if this is too general for you, you can help with this by sending in questions and comments. But right now, let's move forward and talk about substitution more specifically. This is probably the most common way of addressing technology in the classroom. This is substituting traditional models for technology. It's simple, bare bones. For example, if you're teaching a history lesson on Oregon, you might use an electronic or web-based version of maps and documents instead of a paper copy. Students might also answer questions about Oregon's history using Microsoft Word instead of filling out a worksheet. Substitution might also include a student using something like Prezi or PowerPoint to make a presentation as opposed to writing or drawing something in the class. Running here we have an example of a history lesson done through Prezi. It's a zooming software, so it zooms in to different levels of text or images. It's fairly simple to use, fairly intuitive. Younger students tend to enjoy it. It's kind of fun, drills into different pieces of data and showing different levels of call-outs or important information, and at the same time really getting the students to engage with it. So this is a really good example of a substitution. Rather than just writing out this text, these popping and jumping and moving adds a little flair to it, gives them some fun, but it's a good example of a direct substitution. A simple substitution can be picking up the phone. It doesn't have to be technologically jaw-dropping. Substitutionary work in the SAMR model would include picking up the phone and giving your student a call, a substitution for a conversation in the classroom or in the hallway. Next, in the SAMR model, we use technology to functionally improve our substitution through the process of augmentation.
Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology. We have the capability to make the world's first bionic man. Steve Austin will be that man. Better than he was before. Better, stronger, faster.
So we're trying to make our lesson plans now bionic through this enhancing approach of substitution. When we enhance substitution, we get augmentation. And augmentation is when we are directly substituting the traditional lesson plans and materials with technology. But this technology now is aimed at increasing or augmenting a student's productivity and the potential of the lesson in some way. So if we return to our example of Oregon history, a student might augment a presentation on, say, the history of Salem during the COVID-19 lockdown by showing a video tour of the Willamette Heritage Center.
My name is John Ritter, and I've lived in Salem, Oregon for 60 years. I'm a professor, a local historian, and a storyteller. Salem's history is filled with fascinating personalities and unbelievable lore. So join me for some fun as we explore Salem like a local.
So in this way, you're augmenting the student's experience by a virtual tour of the Willamette Heritage Center. How about adding multiple augmentations at once? This one would even add a social emotional learning experience. Families could get together. They can select a destination in our state. They can purchase the route. Yes, this unfortunately does cost. Purchase the route. They download the route to their phone so it can play offline, doesn't need a cell phone connection while you're driving. Significant points of interest in Oregon history and Oregon geology, whatever, pop up, play through the speakers, allowing the student to participate in this way.
Simplify and enhance your road trip at togetheranywhere.com. Your adventure is ready.
All right, back to our model. At this level, we've moved from enhancement to transformation. We're now modifying our lesson design. We're using technology to completely redesign the task. So to go back to our organ history model, in this case, we might be using a collaborative model to produce a new product or synthesis of existing materials. But we might have these students in a cloud-based workspace like we have here, and they might be working together on experiencing some of the feelings that of explorers on the Oregon Trail might have experienced. And so we might be acting it out in a group setting. The students can all see each other, the teacher can see the students, but we're actually engaged in now a completely new kind of visualization of the materials. The final level of our model is at the level of transformation, and kind of the pinnacle of our pyramid here is redefinition. And this is when technology has actually allowed for the creation of novel tasks, ones that could not have existed prior, ones that are previously unavailable to us. And so in this case, we have to ask if the technology that we're using has allowed you as a teacher to redefine a traditional task in a way that you would not be able to do so without the tech, creating a completely new experience. So to go back to our tried and true organ history example, let's say for the sake of this example that those students have been tasked with how would you problem solve a difficult winter on the Oregon Trail? What are some things you might have done yourself, given what you've learned? What might you have done different? Or maybe you're going to ask them to talk about problems that they might encounter in establishing a new township. There's lots of different ways to do that. There's even some games. Clash of Clans is a game that would allow students to build their own little fort, kind of their own little area. This is taking the old Oregon Trail game to the nth degree. But you could even take it a step further, that they could interact with students in real time from other states or other classrooms. There's even been examples of K through 12 and higher education students interacting on classwork like this. So in an effort to keep this rather brief, that's the model. Substitution and augmentation comprise the enhancement level. Modification, redefinition comprise the transformational level. Now let's look at a couple examples that we will take through each of these. Okay, so I found some examples online. I'm just going to run through those quickly with you using the SAMR model. If the original assignment is drawing or painting using traditional materials, crayons, paintbrushes, pencils, pens, whatever, if we're going to use substitution, we're going to be using digital drawing materials like paint or another native drawing app to the computer. If we're going to augment that and we're going to step up to enhancement, we're going to use a tool that allows the creation of animation to it, like Educreations, for example, that kind of draw it in live time. So it's recording the student's work and then it sort of paints the picture for them. If we're going to move up into transformation, we're going to be looking at modification, and modification is going to be pulling down a background image, and on top of that, you place over that the drawing, which could be scanned or it could be hand-drawn, and that now is modifying by using a canvas. And then finally, redefinition. Redefinition is creating artwork collaboratively. This would be you're drawing the first part of it, I'm drawing the second, our partner's drawing the third, and by using a collaborative online whiteboard like Twiddle or any of these approaches is actually now transforming the lesson by redefining the work itself. Example number 2 is if the original lesson is email etiquette, and it's going to be to review printed copies of email etiquette concepts and guidelines. To start off in the enhancement, substitution is going to be read an online article discussing email etiquette. If we're going to stay in enhancement but go up to augmentation, we're going to augment this by now having the students read an online article discussing the email etiquette concepts and guidelines, but we're now going to link to other examples and offer comments online indicating their top 5 favorite tips. Move into transformation and modification. Same lesson, same original lesson of reviewing email etiquette. Now modification is going to be having students watch a video discussing email etiquette concepts and create a Twitter account and tweet their top 5 tips. And then finally, transforming through redefinition. Students now watch the guidelines video, then assess examples of email etiquette violations and indicate which guidelines should be applied to correct or improve on these examples in a collaborative way. So redefining the assignment into almost a new assignment. And to continue with Sammer, if we were to use fractions as a traditional, again, pen and paper model where the students are going to fill in little squares to show their understanding of fractions, we could go into substitution by using Excel and have the students use the fill properties to fill in cells to demonstrate their understanding of fractions. We could augment that further by using Google Sheets, where the student can have direct feedback from the teacher. We can get into transformation and modification by using Google Sheets and now have it open up to a small group, and the students could work on this together in a small group format. And then finally, in redefinition, we could have the students use a fractions app on a mobile device or on their computer that allows them to experience the homework assignment in a completely different way and to see it visualized and to use different properties that only those digital devices could apply. Some activities in the classroom are really hard to translate over to technology, but if we use one example, which would be like a physical example, like we're going to teach a student how to make pottery, and that typically starts with an example of modeling, where the teacher will model, the students will imitate. If we're going to run that through the Sammer model, we're going to start with substitution, and we may have them watch a video of my making pottery that they can imitate. Moving up to augmentation, they're going to watch my video, and I'm going to link other videos in there. Now I've augmented my original lesson with watching others make pottery. Modification would be flipping the class. Now the student is, after having watched my video, they're now making a video of themselves, and they're turning that in. And then redefinition would be students watching the video examples of my making pottery. Now they're making pottery, and I'm giving them feedback on their technique. I hope these brief examples have been helpful to you in considering how maybe to apply the Sammer model in your classroom. Well, that's about all we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. And one last thing. Imagine you are teaching in a class that has students that range in experience from 2 years to over 25 years. How would you teach to that class? What would you teach that class? There isn't a way to do an assessment on this group, and you don't really even get to interact with them per se. You're just kind of tossing out information. Well, that's what I'm doing right now. Unless you participate, unless you send me or your superintendent your questions, your thoughts, your comments, your ideas, things you're doing that's working that you could share with your brothers and sisters out there on the front lines of education, we're flying blind. I'm often asked in consultations and trainings to provide more meat, to provide more kind of what to do. Well, to make it analogous to my field, that would be like saying, I have a boy. How would you treat him? What should we do to this boy? All that we know is it's a male. I don't know what age. I don't know what the diagnosis is. I don't know what symptoms are. I don't know what the behaviors are. You probably wouldn't be able to do a very good job either. So we need your participation. Please send at least one question or comment in. Not just thanks, that was great. That's very nice. I need to know, what are you doing? Was this helpful? Are you doing something different? Are you worried about something? Are you concerned? If you're worried about sharing this information to the superintendent, send it to me. I have no interest in sharing a name with the superintendent. I'm just trying to provide good content, good material for you guys. And the only way to do that is if you participate with me. So please do so. The email again will be listed at the bottom of the screen here, Lonnie@mindworks.com. Thank you so much. Have a great time.